After Los Angeles extended their eviction moratorium until 2023, a homeowner is unable to move into their house due to pandemic protections. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and once again, it's coming out of the state of California. Now, as I said in a previous video about a week or so ago, the state of California has, or not the state of California, but the county of Los Angeles County, California, has extended their eviction protections all the way until 2023, and in some cases all the way until June of 2023. So a lot of landlords out there are going to be suffering for 12 to 18 months more as all of this nonsense is going on. So this article has the story of some homeowners who bought this house that had tenants in it. And because the eviction moratorium was extended, because these pandemic protections were put into place, they can't move into their new home. And you know, it's a bad situation. They kind of became de facto landlords. So yeah, I'm not in support of this situation because these people didn't even want to be landlords in it. They just wanted to be able to move into this house. And they unfortunately bought a house that already had a tenant in it, thinking that they could get this tenant out and then they'd be able to move in. Well, it's not that simple, especially not in California. Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think of this sort of situation. Do you think it's right that a homeowner, somebody who just bought a house, should have to wait for more than a year before they're able to move into it and not get paid rent by a tenant, while this tenant is protected by these eviction moratoriums, by these tenant eviction protections? Okay, what's your opinion of this sort of situation? Now, I've already told you in my prior videos, I don't believe any eviction moratorium is constitutional or legal, and that I believe that landlords have property rights that shouldn't be able to be affected because of some sort of pandemic or illness going around. That doesn't mean the Constitution suddenly is suspended. Okay, that's ridiculous, all right? But what's your opinion, okay? Now, I've been noticing a lot of comments. I've got, you know, not just landlords have been watching these videos, but tenants have been watching these videos too. A lot of them aren't very happy with me right now. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind hearing the opinions of tenants, but just keep in mind that the grand majority of us landlords, we're good people. We're doing the right thing. We're working with the tenants when we have to. We're not evicting people unless we absolutely have to. But at the same time, guess what? We are running for-profit businesses. So when it comes to raising rents to pay for our rising expenses, we have to do it, okay? Inflation last year was 7%. My property taxes went up on all of my properties. My insurance costs went up on all of my properties. On the properties where I pay utilities, those costs went up, okay? When I'm doing repairs and paying for capital expenditures, all of the products and everything I use, all the services, everything went up. Every single expense I have on my rental properties over the last year went up. So don't tell me that it's wrong that I'm raising rent on you when everything else went up in price. But let's get into this article and see what it says, okay? This article is coming from losangeles.cbslocal.com, and it says, Carson homeowner unable to move into new house due to pandemic renter protections. And let's see what it says. A Carson couple who purchased a home in June has been unable to move into their new house because a tenant from the previous owner has refused to leave. As it turns out, the tenant doesn't have to leave because the Board of Supervisors voted in January to extend most pandemic eviction protections through the end of the year. According to Enrique Cardona and his wife, who live across the street from the home they own, it's the kind of house that people like to stop and look at. Everybody gawks at it. People almost get in accidents stopping to look at it, Enrique said, adding they often would sit on their porch and fantasize about what it would be like to own the home. So yeah, the LA County, they extended their eviction moratorium, and now these people, they bought this house, they can't move into it. And he says it's a very unique looking house, and it really is. So I'm going to throw a picture up over here of what the house looks like. And yeah, I think it looks pretty awesome, and it's unfortunate that these people just can't move into it right now. However, in June of last year, their wish came true when they purchased the property for a little over $500,000. At the time, there were 3 tenants living in the home. 2 of them moved out, but 1 remained. He basically said he wanted to stay here until February of this year. And I said, we can give you 30 days. And he said, no, I'm staying, Enrique said. Yeah, can you believe the nerve of this tenant? He's like, no, I'm not leaving. I'm staying. So there were 3 tenants living in there before. So what do you want to bet that they were splitting the rent 3 ways? So when the other 2 tenants moved out, guess what? Only 1 tenant was left in there. And of course he couldn't pay the full rent by himself. He didn't get any other tenants in there, but he didn't leave either. So he's like, well, you know, I'll pay my third of the rent. No. See, this is my problem. You know, when you're renting to people and they're, you know, acting in like a roommate capacity, well, this is the kind of situation that you can come up with. That's why I much prefer renting to a family or, you know, at least a couple, and then putting it, you know, as part of my lease that, hey, you know, if you want to stay, then you're responsible for 100% of this rent. But obviously that lease wouldn't mean anything if there was an eviction moratorium in place, which there was. So the tenant has been in there since June, it looks like, and I don't know if they've paid any rent that entire time. So it's already been like 7 months since then. And then we're talking about they still might not be able to evict this guy all the way through the end of the year. So they're out like a year and a half of rent on top of the fact that they can't actually move into the house that they own. How ridiculous is this whole situation? Nothing should surprise you coming out of California, though. The tenant is protected by the county's eviction moratorium, which is set to run through the end of the year. My wife and I inadvertently became landlords, Enrique said. We have only been in this predicament for 7 months. I feel the strain, but can only imagine what people who have had to do this for 2 years. There are some cases where an LA County homeowner can evict a tenant during the moratorium, but if that tenant is low income, elderly, or disabled, then the landlord has little recourse other than to wait or come to some sort of deal with the renter. But you will also pay relocation fees, and those relocation fees are based on the number of bedrooms and can range anywhere from $10,000 to $22,000, eviction attorney Melissa Marsh said. So yeah, I just did a video about how this couple up in Oakland, California had to pay $7,000 of relocation fees. So now these people are kind of caught in the same scenario. Basically, the only way to get this tenant out of this property that you own is to pay them to go. And on top of paying them, let's say you say, okay, yeah, here's 15 grand, you can go. But then you also got to pay them relocation fees too of 10 to 22,000. So really what this is coming down to is you can either suck up the losses until the end of the eviction moratorium, which, you know, suck up the losses and not have a place for you to live, or you could come out of your own pocket $30,000, $40,000, you know, so the tenant gets a huge windfall and you get screwed as the property owner. This is the way that California has their stupid laws set up. And I'll say that again, it's stupid. Okay, any tenant who is doing this to a landowner, a property owner, all they're doing is scamming. They're just completely scamming. They're going on, they're collecting their money, and then they're going off and, you know, buying an Escalade or some BS. But I can't believe this kind of garbage is even in place. But they didn't think about the landlords when they put these laws in place. The only thing, oh, we're going to help you. Yeah, well, you know what? A lot of these tenants are scamming, and in this situation, it's exactly what it sounds like. The Cardona's tenant is a low-income senior. Marsh said the only thing the couple can do is wait for the pandemic renter protections to expire. He can negotiate with the tenant and offer them maybe $50,000, and maybe he'll accept it, Marsh said. There's a Housing is Key program where the state will reimburse landlords the back rent they're owed. Cardona did apply for that in September, but said so far he's not seen a dime. So yeah, he applied for rent assistance in September, and guess what? It's February now. February, and you know, we're 6 months later, hasn't seen a dime. Hey, rent assistance programs don't work. So when I say, hey, I want them to throw out the eviction moratoriums because the rental assistance programs don't work, and I want them to throw out these stupid laws that require landlords to pay, you know, so they could have their own property back, you know, the Supreme Court shouldn't even allow this sort of stuff to happen, in my opinion. Okay, this stuff should have already been outlawed, but nobody has pushed it far enough. So going back to that case up in Oakland, like I said, I hope that all the landlord groups hop on it, you know, and they push it all the way up to the Supreme Court. They offer all the legal, you know, help necessary, because if they can get this thrown out, that will be a benefit to every landlord in the entire state of California. Now, as for this couple here, you know, there isn't a lot that they can do right now. Okay, and like they said, paying $50,000, why should a tenant get a huge windfall for moving? That is so dumb. Oh my goodness. You know, it frustrates the hell out of me when I read stuff in California. I'm just glad that I live in Nebraska, that I invest in, you know, Missouri and in Nebraska and not over there on the West Coast. You know, the appreciation you make, it just isn't worth it. Okay, it isn't worth it to me to go through that sort of stress and that sort of trouble. So yeah, interesting article, nothing surprising here. Another case of California and their nonsense anti-landlord laws screwing somebody over.